What's going on, everybody? Doc from Average Gamer Guys, back yet again. A little bit more Halo Wars 2 action. We got a lot of balance changes incoming with the new update. Now, up front here, I'm going to do as best as I can to get through a lot of this. I will post all of this stuff, the official forum post. There's a little video down below so you guys can take a look at all of the updates, all of the balance changes, everything that we should expect. It is coming out next week. I know originally, even at the PAX East panel, they were hoping and planning for it to come out third Wednesday, which would have been the Wednesday of this week. It got delayed a little bit because of some of these balance changes and a few last minute tweaks. So we're going to cover this as quickly as I can. We got a little bit of actually really good 1v1 fight and probably two of the best glassing beams I've ever had in this game in Blitz going on in the background. But again, just something for you guys to watch while I kind of cover this. Again, huge balance update changes. They didn't say specifically when next week this was coming. I'm going to be honest, I expect it probably about middle of the week. Sketch, as those of you that have been around for a little while know, he's kind of working a lot of the stuff as far as the Halo Wars and all of the forums and everything like that. So balance updates is what I want to talk about. In this game, I'm going to be honest, a lot of this stuff it desperately needs. There were some things that I wasn't aware that was going on with some of the balance updates. So it's nice to see them kind of covering all areas of the community here in all different multiplayer modes. So we'll jump right into this. Leader powers, a couple of them are getting some changes. Shipmaster scout mines, this is one of the things I didn't know. The scout mines were being dropped on buildings and honestly doing a lot of damage, which I did not realize. So they've changed it so that you can't do that anymore. The banished glassing beam, so Shipmaster's glassing beam has a slightly reduced speed. I think this is actually really good. And actually this Blitz gameplay is one where I really saw it. It's just too fast. If you get it targeted up, get it in a big group of units, you should obviously get a lot of good damage out of it, and it is consistent damage. But they're decreasing the speed on this just slightly, so maybe some of those faster units that should really be able to get out of the way, they might be able to make it. So that's kind of cool. And again, with a lot of these updates, they will affect both Blitz and regular multiplayer modes regardless, unless I say it specifically. ODSTs, they're going to get a slight HP decrease. Their cost is also going to increase. I think this is supposed to be 60 to 880. It says 600 to 800. So maybe a typo there, I'm not sure. But they basically just talk about how the ODSTs were just being a little bit too successful against certain things that they shouldn't have been so successful with. They said that a slight balance for HP should kind of round these guys out. They still want them to be really good, and I think they'll remain the same. So economy, this is one thing. Those of you that play any of the regular multiplayer modes, strongholds or anything like that, or regular deathmatch, will see they adjusted the supply income curve to give less of a bonus to the first few supply pads and warehouses, but it's less limiting as players build additional pads. And basically they do a nice little summary, but basically talking about how later in the game, if you've got a really good balanced upgraded single base, that you could essentially provide enough resources to yourself. If you only had one base and somebody had multiple bases, you'd still be essentially being comparable and be able to keep up. And that's not what they want. They want it that if you're going to have a couple bases, essentially so that you will eventually get the upper hand by creating more supply. So having this change to the curve, I actually think is really good. In conjunction with that, they're taking a look at some of the leaders, Sergeant Forge being one of them. They've now reduced or removed completely from Forge's rolling economy leader power. So obviously this is for regular multiplayer modes. As for supply pads and reactors, they've removed the discount for rolling economy for the upgrades. He will still get the capability, or excuse me, for you to build them. He'll still get with rolling economy, he'll have less of a cost to upgrade them, which is really nice, so that it's not like they're completely removing that leader skill tree power at all. It's just they're making it so that you can't buy the initial ones for cheaper, which I think should help balance it. A little bit farther into the game, and you get a couple of those first upgrades, it's still going to be helpful, probably just not as dominant, which is nice to see. And then his accelerated assembly has swapped places with Lotus mines, essentially making it so that it takes that a little bit longer to get there, so you're not spamming those units quite as quickly, which that's kind of how they want to balance him. So no issues with those. So rush and counter infantry units is the next thing we're talking about. And this really applies to both flamers, jetpack brutes, and a few other units, and I'll go into them. So for jump pack brutes, you're getting increased HP, increased DPS, and a slight increase to move speed. With Hellbringers, this is very much needed because these guys absolutely stink. They're getting a significant increase to HP, significant increases to fire damage dealt to basic infantry units. Guys, they needed this. If you ever used the Hellbringers and realized that they're not killing any amount of infantry at all ever, this is a very welcome change, especially with Cansano coming out and her focus on Hellbringers and fire units in general. So it's nice to see them getting a buff to those two stats. They're going to get a slight move increase. Their costs are reduced 80 to 50 and 80 to 40, and then they have a reduced pre-attack and post-attack cooldown just to increase some responsiveness. So I think Hellbringers might start coming to the forefront, and obviously not only be a usable unit, but potentially to be a pretty good unit with this. And again, these two specific balance changes they did so that these two units would be used a little bit more in regular multiplayer. One is kind of an anti-infantry push, because we're going to talk suicide grunts here in a second, as well as just doing some better damage initially to buildings as the things that they're supposed to be good against. Jump pack brutes, Hellbringers specifically, are supposed to be good against those buildings. They just weren't putting out what they needed to, so they've changed that. Suicide grunts, and this is one that's not going to affect Blitz, but will affect regular multiplayer. We're going to see increased HP, a base damage decrease, a base AoE range increased, move speed slightly increased, charge distance increased, charge speed decreased, and then cost reductions. The reason they wanted to do this, they were seeing that regular Marines were actually destroying the large groups of suicide grunts with single grenade abilities and just shooting them before they could get in a charge and do any damage. So by reducing the cost, reducing some of their base damage, increasing a little bit of the AoE, and then increasing their charge distance so they start charging faster or sooner, but then reducing the speed, they think this will help balance it out. A unit I haven't seen a lot, but obviously you want everything to have its purpose and be usable, so it's nice to see them taking a look. Elite Rangers are something that's getting a little bit of a buff here too. They're increasing their HP. Armor type is being changed to be more resistant to both Marines and Grunt squads, which is good. So they can kind of, they're trying to pair this up a little bit closer to the snipers. We have faster projectiles, so they won't miss as often, which is good. That's one thing I've noticed. And then they're reworking some of their costs and some DPS increases. So all in all, again, trying to make them a little bit more similar to the sniper, which is a pretty top tier unit, especially anti-infantry. So that's kind of the way they're going with this, so no issue here. Scout units is another thing we're going to see, and they wanted to make it so that these units would essentially be able to fight some of those rushes, some of those infantry rushes, but not make it so that these units could create a rush themselves. They want these units to be good at harassing enemy troops, gathering supplies, and decapturing points, but have maybe a little bit more of a narrow role in the overall point of the game. I know scout rushes were another thing, especially in regular multiplayer, that people were seeing with quite a bit of consistency, so it's nice to see some changes here. They're reducing reduced ram reflect damage, so it'll take less for the warthogs, and then reduced damage versus buildings. The jackrabbit's getting cost reduction, same as the ghost and same as the chopper. Counter vehicle units, the hunters and cyclops, they're reducing the costs of both of these and also reducing the DPS. They found they were just too good against vehicles, which is interesting, but I would generally agree with that. So they're going to try to bring them down just a little bit, but more importantly, they're buffing the tanks. They want the Wraith. They do want the Wraith to be a little bit more squishy compared to the Scorpion, but they want the Wraith to be able to have a good damage capability and really to rely more for the Wraith on kind of its additional ability with the Plasma Mortar. So with the Wraith, you're seeing increased HP, increased shields, Its build time is going to be reduced. Cost changes. Plasma cannon DPS is going to be increased. Its mortar DPS increased. Plasma mortar fire rate increased. Its initial Y damage ability increased. And then incoming healing reduced. For the Scorpion, we'll see HP increases, some changes to the cost. Machine gun DPS increased. Cannon DPS increased. AoE for the cannon decreased. Canister shell DPS increased. Canister shell AoE size increased, and then incoming healing reduced. And then the Grizzly will see HP, machine gun DPS, missile pod DPS, cannon DPS, and missile barrage ability all increased. So honestly, as I look at this, some good changes that these units need, because we do want to see a good amount out of them. Honestly, we want to see them be useful. I don't see a lot of, honestly, a lot of play with these units, so it's good to see them getting some buffs, getting to be some of those more top tier units that we expect the tanks to be honest. And then it seems like the Grizzly was always my favorite, and with these increases I think it's going to be a really good force to be reckoned with, finally, which it should be, because it is pretty much an uber unit. We see some changes to core infantry here. Again, they want these things to be a little bit more balanced out. Marines were just really dealing with the grunts too well, essentially. So we're going to see these get some balance here. So grunts, the grunt squad build time is going to be reduced. Overall DPS for basic and the mine upgrade squads is going to be increased. And then overall DPS increase for the pack brother upgrade. Marines, they're going to get grenade DPS decreased. Grenade large AoE size reduced. And then the Marine assault rifle DPS slightly decreased. So again, just some balancing between the infantry, make them a little bit maybe more on par. The grunts were supposed to be, more so that you had to attack in larger numbers with them, but they were just seeing Marines being essentially too overwhelming against these. Ander Sentinels, this is one thing that we've been talking about and we've wanted to see for a while. So it's funny, as I read through this, and again, post down below, they're talking here, Ander Sentinels were being used and had an incorrect weapon modifier, which was giving them a huge bonus versus buildings, vehicles, and certain types of infantry. So essentially a mistake, which it's good to know that that wasn't how it was originally designed. Interesting to see that it wasn't caught earlier, but that's neither here nor there. So a lot of updates for this. They still want the Sentinels to be, fast moving, easy to build, a quick unit. They want them to pair well with Hornets, Nightingales, to be a good Air Force, but they don't want them to be obviously as overwhelming as they are, and honestly is kind of cheap and broken as they currently sit. So they changed it to the correct type, and here's what we're seeing for changes. Move speed for them overall decreased. They no longer have the huge damage versus buildings, which is good because they weren't supposed to. They have a general DPS decrease, and then their lockdown bolt, that additional Y ability damage, it was decreased significantly. So again, some more balancing. Along the lines with air units, Banshees, they find these to be pretty well set, with one exception, which is their plasma torpedo. We're seeing that damage significantly reduced. Essentially, it was to the point where plasma torpedoes were too good and destroying condors, which apparently even in large packs they were not generally meant to do. So slight change there. And then Locust, this is something that we've talked about quite a bit with the Locust, and we've known the Locust has been a really good unit for a long time. One thing that we always talked about was its range. And this is where they're actually changing this for this unit. So they're having a slight DPS decrease, so just another little modifier there. Line of sight range is going to be reduced, and weapon range is going to be reduced. They want them to be more in line with how far a Wraith can fire, comparative to like a blister back. So I think they'll still be usable in kind of a support role, setting them up over top, but it's not going to be the crazy range that we're still seeing. And again, the slight DPS reduction, I think this will help with the Blood Fuel Locust, because it is still really good. I think it'll help balance that out a little bit. But with the reduction in range, I think this will really be the final balancing, still make it a good unit, but just not make it overwhelming. They changed some things for the base turrets. The UNSC and Banished upgraded turrets DPS have both been increased. Banished turrets, they said, were a little bit lower tier than the UNSC should have been, so they're getting an HP buff here. UNSC turret build times have been reduced, as well as the Banished build times have been reduced, so nice to see. Stronghold, they said it was becoming too easy for players to destroy main bases and strongholds, which is not the point. So they've given an HP increase consistently to headquarters, and then now a higher HP amount across all tech tiers to make that a little bit harder. So that's really interesting. So that's really the balancing updates that we're seeing. There's a ton of other bug fixes, a ton of other stuff. Again, check the post for that. I won't go over them all because a lot of them are very specific. One final note that I do want to talk about, really two final notes. They have talked about Cansano again. It's coming as part of this update. There's going to be 3 achievements, so we're going to get 3 new achievements for the game. I'm hoping, and I didn't read this in the fixes, but they didn't say it. I'm still hopeful that the short-term and long-term achievements will actually track and actually work, because those are the last 2 I think a lot of people are waiting on. I know I am, and those achievement hunters out there with those 2 last things just kind of holding by. It's a little aggravating, but we'll get 3 new achievements, and hopefully they fix those other 2. But again, I didn't see anything in there. And the big thing that we're getting, and this actually comes out at a perfect time, and I think 343 and Creative Assembly have held up their end of the bargain on this one. We're seeing ranked playlists and ranked matchmaking for the first time coming with this update, so really excited about that. You're going to get a bunch of new playlists, so we're going to get the same versus Rumble, Team Objective, and Team War that we've seen. We're also going to get ranked 1v1, 2v2, and ranked 3v3, and then we're also going to get Blitz. We're going to get Standard and Brawl, and then Ranked Standard and Ranked Brawl. So that will be the playlist updates that we'll see. The one thing with Blitz that I don't see is Duel, so I'm hoping that they still keep the 1v1s, but with this playlist update, since I'm not seeing it, I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure if that's something that will stay around. I do like the 1v1s, as you guys just seen. I enjoy playing it. It's fun. It's easy to get in a game when you don't have anybody else on. So hopefully that will stick around. But as it stands right now, that is the update. That is what's coming. Again, no specific release date, but I expect probably about midweek next week, which will be cool. Again, we're getting Cansano. We're getting 3 new achievements for her. We're getting all the DLC associated with her and her new units. And then a lot of balance changes, and then again a lot of game fixes that we didn't cover. So check the post out down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Honestly, the balance changes, a lot of them were much needed, so it's nice to see again them listening to the community, them getting us what we need, and putting out good content for us. But again, only time will tell with a lot of this stuff to see how, Cansano coming into the gameplay and mixing things up. I'm sure there'll be balance changes that are needed there. So keep providing that feedback, either here, let 343, let Creative Assembly know, get on the forums, get on Halo Waypoint, do all that good stuff, because they are listening and checking that stuff out. So it is really neat. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Try to get through it as quick as I could and just talk through it. And again, check that post down below. And as always, if you haven't already subscribed, follow us on Twitter, and then join the Average Gamer Guys Club. Again, me and Sloth are looking very soon to do some kind of community let's play type things, and just reach out and play with you guys. And the best way to reach you is to hit you up on Twitter, and then also if you're in that Average Gamer Guys Club, which everybody can join, makes it really easy to get in contact with you. So hope you guys enjoyed. I've been Doc from Average Gamer Guys. Thank you so very much for watching. Really excited for this update when it comes out next week, and we'll be covering a lot of it. So we will check you then. Thanks for watching.